Dixo presenta Coffee with Captain, with Garga and Figge. Otherside Announcements and Apechain. Hosted by Cap and Steve.
So we're going to bring Garga up to stage. Excited to chat with Garga today about some big announcements that came out. So just to hit on the big announcements, because I want to dive deep into them. So we'll let people know if you missed it, we'll pin the thread to the top. But basically, the TLDR is we're going to have the ability to build on plots with ODK. Figge put out a great video about that. If you missed it, again, we'll pin that to the top. Bathroom Blitz coming. It's an 8v8. It looks like a pretty cool real world, realistic, different environment that you're in. Bubbles are coming. Otherside Outbreak. Move towards persistent Otherside. XP being earned. And items being dropped in like a token. Also, by the way, you're going to be able to create things like emotes. You're going to be able to create a lot of things in Otherside. So lot packed into that announcement. So obviously been waiting to uncork this for some time. You've teased it a few times. I just want to start off with, you look at all these things you dropped yesterday, and I'm going to ask you to pick your favorite child. What was the thing you were most excited to have out in the public, out in the wild yesterday?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, it's tricky. I mean, I think the thing I'm most excited about is like the new primitives that we're unlocking for builders and creators. There's 3 videos we dropped yesterday. One shows all the development that's been happening for other deeds. We've been teasing out slowly the 29 biomes, renders of each of these kind of wild, psychedelic, strange environments for Otherside. We did a second video, which was Figge kind of going through some AI tooling that we've been creating. But the third one is a pretty simple one, and it just shows a Voyager running around another deed, collecting tokens. Collecting coins for another way, in another way of speaking. So, video games, we're all used to it. Super Mario running around collecting stars or gold coins. Sonic, same thing. To have those coins actually be ERC20s or 1155s or 721, NFTs or fungible tokens that you can be running around collecting. Like, I think new primitives like that Otherside's going to introduce into our virtual world is going to enable, hopefully, emergent behavior, emergent creations that we haven't thought of yet. And that's what I get most excited about, because when you look at any new platform, it all starts off, I think a good example for folks is YouTube. When YouTube first started, everybody thought like, oh, okay, CNN, ESPN, these are the things that are going to build YouTube channels, and they're going to have millions of people. More people are going to watch CNN or ESPN on YouTube than they're going to watch on the platform itself. And that stuff is always true for a little bit of period of time. What you then find is, no, people evolve into, the platform kind of finds its new creators. And today, obviously, it's like 2 guys, getting drunk talking about sports has like 20x, 50x the viewership of, CNN or whatever else it is. And I think when you're creating a virtual world like Otherside, unlocking new primitives for folks to build with, to engage with, can lead to new kinds of games, new kinds of experiences. And I think that's just super exciting.
Yeah, it's funny because we had you on about 3 weeks ago. I had no idea any of this was coming down. And I made the analogy of you gave the IP rights at Bored Ape Yacht Club. It opened up this whole new way to do things. Is Otherside sort of that playground that you're looking, and Apechain that playground? And it feels like very much so, especially when you say things like these new primitives, which I think it's a great way of putting it. And that part is what excited us the most, that idea that you could grab something. So is the idea in that exact example that, you're able to have your other deed, you build using sort of existing pieces on other deed, and we'll talk about how you build, because I think that's interesting. We'll ping Figge on that in a minute here. But is the idea that you would be able to maybe hide, do a scavenger hunt for NFTs on your other deed that maybe you create of your art, or maybe you put a Bored Ape on there or a Fidenza or anything, and people would theoretically be able to collect that from a deed?
Absolutely. The idea is either from another deed or from an ODK built experience we want to enable as many different ways of, using these building blocks as possible. So maybe you're token gating your other deed or your ODK experience to an existing or a new ERC20 or 721 NFT community. Maybe you're running a treasure hunt within that virtual world for an NFT or a pot of fungible tokens. Maybe you're competing in a skill-based game and the winners get access to mint or collect one of these things. Like, I think, with Dookie V1, we all had a ton of fun with what a skill-based mint, a surprise skill-based mint could look like. I think we're opening up the possibilities for any game dev to come online and do that kind of thing. And when you look at in the same way we're seeing so many institutions come online, especially North America, like, the North American crypto users, not so much coming on chain anymore directly. They're coming on, it's happening through ETFs. It's going to happen through Robinhood and these other things. I think we're going to see a wave of traditional game devs wanting to catch up, build in crypto without doing everything from scratch. And our hope is to create the platform that enables them to get their feet wet and to do these things where they actually can get comfortable with how crypto works, with the fee structures that we have, and they never need to leave the platform. That's the vision in the end.
How realistic is it for non-game devs to do that? I got really excited when I saw the trailer yesterday. This was what I was hoping for, these creator tools. I was hoping AI would help me become a creator and help me build an Otherside. I was not expecting it to be native to the platform. So I agree. I think this could attract game devs outside of Web3 into this crypto native environment. Is it also part of the vision is to help people like me, who's not a dev, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination, to create in this world? And then
Absolutely.
Do you see others who aren't in the club, aren't in crypto, but they're a gamer, they've just never built? Do you is that also a demographic you're looking to attract, to bring them in and start also creating and building in this world?
Absolutely. So we think of it on a barbell level. So on one side of here, we have, we're trying to raise the ceiling of what an experienced or amateur game dev has some familiarity with Unreal Engine is able to do quickly. So if you're that kind of person, you can build within the confines of Unreal Engine in kind of familiar territory. That means looking at blueprints, importing assets. We have many of our own blueprints that we've developed for folks. We have tons of different ways of deploying that world, a really easy way to deploy that world to the cloud so somebody can immediately jump in. It can be token gated, all that kind of stuff. And some of the creator tools that you saw Figge voicing over yesterday, that stuff is intended to take that experience, which is really this kind of amateur/pro experience, and demystifying it a little bit, getting people to be able to talk in natural language to kind of work through the interface and build. On the other side of that, for really entry-level people who, are just people who just want to have fun, don't have experience making games and all that kind of stuff, that's where we're looking at, okay, you can have your other deed, you can build on that thing in the game, not in Unreal Engine. Think of how you would decorate your house and build and decorate your house in like an Animal Crossing or something like that, and placing things and using kind of more of that inherent logic, and then taking some lower level creative UGC things like creating sticker packs or wearables for your avatar or that kind of thing. And I think the more, those are the two types of people that we need to keep our eyes on. Not everything, not everything's going to be accessible at the start to, the more normie user who doesn't have game dev experience. But I think these AI tools can help these two profiles start to converge more and more over the years.
Love it.
So it feels a little bit like Roblox, but built out in that sense for people who are maybe wanting to almost vibe code their way through it. How important is something like, well, I guess two questions. One, how important is like something like a Glyph wallet that gets you over to be able to get on there if you're not in Web3? Because if you're trying to really build this thing out, like outside of sort of our corner of the internet, let alone the club itself, there's probably something there. So how important is it to have sort of that Glyph wallet experience? And when do you think it'll be ready for, obviously, a lot of announcements go over today, but, thinking in the future, when do you think it'll be ready to say, hey, we're going to start doing campaigns to get real developers on here, real gaming people who are going to pull on with the Glyph wallet and vibe code their way onto building experiences like we're about to see with Bathroom Blitz?
Yeah, absolutely. So for Glyph, Glyph started as Yuga ID a year ago. We have rebranded it and made it accessible to other people to integrate. It just got integrated onto Magic Eden, which is great. Thank you to that team for integrating over there. I think it's a really important part here. Like, I like to just log in with my Twitter. I think that's way less precious to me than, logging into a hot wallet. It's way less of a pain in the ass. And with that, you're getting a self-custodial wallet generated for you out of Privy. And so if I'm playing on Otherside and I'm collecting tokens, fungible tokens, NFTs, whatever, the way that experience looks for me is I run up, I grab something, I look at it in my inventory of my profile, it shows up, and I don't need to know that thing's on chain. But if I really want to know more, there's like a details kind of link there, and it'll take you off to ApeScan or, and at that point, it's proof that this thing's on chain and it's composable. So folks like Otherpage and the Otherside wiki and all that kind of stuff, they can be ingesting that data. They can find other UI ways of showing that stuff. They can kind of do the data crunching to see like who has what and kind of who are we gunning for and that kind of thing. I think that's all super important. And then in terms of the experience for getting game devs on, next month in July, we're going to be launching Bathroom Blitz. It's a small 8 versus 8, dueling it out in the BOIC bathroom. It's a shooter. There's grappling hooks. I think Von Doom, OG community member who developed this with us, he posted a video yesterday that's a great little highlight reel of some gameplay. And I think it'll be really fun. I mean, it's not Project Dragon with 2,000 people. This is much more akin to, the Counter-Strike style game mode that we all grew up playing. So that's a great example. We have another one coming the following month. And our goal here is to be launching another one of these a lot. I can't speak too much of that, but it took us a while to get to a place where, these game devs can be working through and building on the platform without too much hand-holding, in some of the idiosyncrasies that we've developed for the platform with M Squared. And I think we're there. And so I'm really excited to get a ton of different game devs building on top of the platform.
Steve, we'll have to have Von Doom on here before they launch. I saw the floating around the timeline yesterday, put some respect on the name. Von Doom, command line, not just getting started. Like, this is the world, like, very accomplished, experienced, done well in the gaming world. And this is, talk about that barbell approach. I'm on one end, like, never coded a thing in my life. Von Doom and team on the complete other end of that barbell. And yeah, excited to dive, not to derail us too much today, but I am excited to have Von Doom on and talk more about what they're building here.
Yeah. Can I actually, I know Figge joined stage. I actually want to ask Figge a question about the video from yesterday, if you're able to jump off mute, which is, you shared that video talking about like almost being able to like vibe code. So I have a couple questions about that. Number one, is this something you had planned from the beginning? Because vibe coding is really the past, I'd say, like 4 to 6 months, and obviously announced Otherside at Ape Fest, number one. Number two, how did you build it? Did you use another engine that you're plugging in? Was it built, product built from scratch? Like, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the vibe coding aspect of people being able to build on their deeds, because that, I think it's a huge deal to unlock the opportunity for people to build. But what is it like building something like that behind the scenes, and do you plug in other engines?
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on there. So some of that demo footage we've had since January or maybe even December of last year. The idea of taking a prompt and building a world, it's like it's an easy idea to say out loud, right? But to actually come up with a proof of concept, it takes a lot of time and thinking. And, we're even showing almost like too much sometimes, like helper functions and, hey, even the thinking around, like, we're going to wrap and unwrap your prompt in a way that's going to be easy for the engine to understand. Like, some of these breakthroughs take us like weeks of just R&D to get through. But we think it's really important because, we listen, when at the end of last year, when all the crypto AI intersection stuff was happening, everybody's launching a token to be coupled with their AI that was like, a Telegram bot hooked up, or a Twitter hooked up to LLM. It was really hard to figure out like what's real here and what's just like marketing, So I think it's really important for us to show a little bit more under the hood, and that's why we were like zipping through the blueprints. And I really do feel like a lot of other systems are gonna go in this direction. Like, I think if you expect people to just use the raw tools to make things, like, the training is too high, you would have to like really get into Unreal Engine, and maybe you don't need all of that knowledge just to make a new environment. So we just wanted to put that demo together and show folks. I mean, there was another world where we just like didn't show the AI stuff that we were working on and just kept heads down and quiet about that. But I think that without seeing that piece and all of the other pieces coming together, you wouldn't really get a good sense of the direction for where we could go with Otherside. It would maybe be just narrowed to strictly games, right? But I think by showing people how to control Unreal Engine with natural language, now the possibilities in people's minds open up, and you can start to see how a lot of the stuff that we've seen before, from tokens and experiences and stories, this could be the shape of a new meta, right? And that's why it was really important to get this video out there.
It got me geeked out. Like, I am, and I'd encourage everyone. Those videos are all pinned up top. It's the one I was showing. There's about 3 minutes long. After the show, go listen to it, because it's like he says, just like this, make the sun bigger, and the sun gets bigger. It's like, make the floor green or pink, and the floor turns pink. Like, it's really just talking like a human, and it's in real time making those changes. Like, that is, I agree. I think that's where our world is heading. And so when it excites someone like me, I can't imagine what actual game devs are thinking, like how much their world just accelerates, right?
Well, I mean, game devs aside, probably humans. Like, I use my son as the example. My son loves anime. He can't draw really great anime. Well, now AI enables that. I think somebody who is a really good sort of game brain, who's maybe played a million games, is a target audience to say, I don't know how to dev. I can't do this, but I can work on it. So I love that idea. Kind of like a question as we went through this, though. This is so in the moment, at the moment, where it's like you have, vibe coding coming in, and that obviously wasn't a thing initially. So I guess my question, Garga, for you would be, how different, or what similarities and what differences is this from the vision from 2022, 2023, when you were first brainstorming this thing? Like, you had this idea, or is it really the same vision, just the tools have changed and made it more accessible? So I'm curious how the vision goes, because vibe coding wasn't a thing when Other Deeds launched.
For sure. And I think like the North Star, the end state, the vision has remained the same. How we go about getting to that is maybe changed a bit. I wrote a long Twitter post yesterday about the history of modding in video games. Counter-Strike, one of the most successful games of all time, that started off as a guy taking Half-Life, messing with it, creating a new game mode, and launching it. He was lucky enough that the owners of Half-Life, Valve, saw that, were stoked behind it. They bought it off him. He got some financial upside, and that took off. Then you saw, one of my favorite games and kind of most important games in video game history is Warcraft 3 from Blizzard. Pretty simple campaign mode. Loved playing the multiplayer personally. But what really took off was Blizzard open sourced their, in a manner of speaking, their map maker, their game mode. They exposed the programming logic that they used to make the game that everybody's out there playing. And out of that, you saw these tower defense games spawn up. You saw what would become the whole MOBA genre with Dota and League of Legends spawn up, and all these different, game modes spawn out of there. And I think that's something that Wiley and I were both always so excited about when you're thinking about, a metaverse or a virtual world where you're trying to put these tools in people's hands, is how can you have on the one side of it your own first party experience, kind of our own campaign of, hey, here's what we're doing. This is, and a story that's a backbone to that thing. And then on the other side of that thing, it's like, and here's all the tools we use to do that. And we're excited to see what you guys come up with. And I don't think we've seen anything like that. Usually these days, things pick a lane. Roblox, there isn't really it wasn't built for their own campaign or their own kind of main storyline. It's really just like, here are the tools. And out of that, you've seen Ninja Legends and, this Grow the Garden thing that I think was taking over recently and all that it's just super fun and kids are geeking out on. And I think, a couple years ago, we might have thought like, okay, yeah, it's going to take a lot of work, many years to kind of get these tools up to snuff with what people might expect with Roblox so that, even a kid could code something. And I think what we're finding is, it's not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but AI is making these things a lot easier. Your leverage as an individual creator is going up, exponentially, it feels like, year after year. And so we're building on Unreal Engine. It's complicated. There's a lot of different parts there. I don't think anyone else is investing, outside of maybe Unreal themselves on accelerating this stuff. And obviously we're, partnered with them building on the platform. So we want to be the world on crypto rails that enables creators like nobody else. And I think if we can get people building and leveraging the platform, monetizing with crypto, like that's where I think we have something that's so special that even somebody who doesn't give a shit about crypto otherwise is like, oh wait, I can permissionlessly build to this thing. I can permissionlessly charge money or launch a token or give utility to do an NFT collection. I think that's how we get normies super excited about crypto again and wanting to come here.
We did BC in the chat ask for, is there a process if they want to apply for the ODK? Can they do that now? Do they need to wait? What does that look like if someone wants to get in there and start building?
For sure. So we have a pretty sizable ODK alpha group going. Again, this is right now, it's for amateur to pro devs. If you're in the Otherside community, you've been active, and that's kind of your profile, reach out to PM on Twitter or in Discord, and he can chat with you and figure out what makes sense. I would caution one thing, which is, we are in the process of migrating from, Unreal 5.3 to 5.5 right now. And so every time you do that, things break a little bit. We're hoping to stay on 5.5 for a very long time, but it's like, that's one of the reasons why we've kept it a little restricted is like, this is early stage. You're getting a kind of look under the kimono here of like, how the sausage is made. And so we're right now for ODK Alpha, we're looking for folks who have some experience and know that this is, not quite ready for prime time yet.
Is there a world down the line where this actually is not just sort of a PC or a computer game, but can actually be played across consoles and you do deals with sort of like the, major players there where, my son might be able to spin it up on a Switch and I might spin it up on an Xbox and somebody else is playing on a PC, similar to a lot of cross-platform games now?
Yeah. In the near term, we're really focused on PC and Mac and on pixel streaming for, allowing really quick accessibility for certain kinds of events.
Can we pause there real quick? I'd heard this pixel streaming, I think yesterday for the first time. What is that for those of us that aren't familiar?
For sure. So I think for first and second trip, everybody who joined was pixel streaming. And what that meant is you could click a link and you could log in and you're playing Otherside. But what is actually happening behind the scenes there is some other computer in the cloud that's loading up Otherside and the thick client, so this other computer somewhere out there has downloaded on it this 800 megabyte file or whatever it is. And then it's streaming it to you from that data center on screen, and you're controlling whatever. So there's a very, very tiny lag on, because this computer is talking to that computer that's talking to the server. But it makes it really easy for folks who have a crappy PC, or even I think joining from their phone sometimes, that kind of thing. Like, it's like you have a really high-end NVIDIA graphics card because that other computer has one. And so it's a really good way to get users in quickly. We've had some, we did have some issues with first and second trip where some of the pixel streaming locations overseas weren't as good as the US ones or whatever it was. But it's a really good tool to get people who don't have a gaming PC or, have a pretty outdated computer to just jump into Otherside. And then the client perspective, that's when like any other video game that you're downloading on your PC these days, multi-gigabyte client. And that's when it looks really crispy. Like if you have at all a decent computer, I encourage you to just download the client whenever you're playing Bathroom Blitz next month or joining in, Outbreak after that or any of our events, because that's when you see all the graphics and all their glory. Things aren't being compressed to, send back and forth through, your computer and somebody else's in the cloud.
Is there specifications on that? Like I assume it's safe to assume a MacBook or laptop within the last 4 or 5 years should run smoothly, or?
Yeah, there's we'll release some kind of min spec stuff, but for a PC, again, what's always best is if you have a discrete graphics card. If you have a PC and it has a graphics card, you're going to be good enough to the races. The Mac clients, Mac has always been tricky in that they're not really built for games. But sorry, my computer is freaking out there for a second there. I don't know what that was about. But we've been doing a lot of work on the Mac client to get everything super optimized. So we'll release some more info on that soon.
Appreciate that as a Mac user.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the different sort of device usage for sure, and sort of the way that you've had to approach that. It's a whole different ball game that you're facing there. But I want to completely flip the subject up and just go with, what the fuck is a coda?
Codas are, so rewinding everything, not talking about the platform, talking about Otherside and the story and the kind of vision for Otherside from that perspective. What we first saw in the earliest trailers for Otherside, I think the most revealing one is the second one, where it's kind of Otherside BC, before Curtis, and you see Blue, our kind of hero coda, our Mickey Mouse when it comes to codas. He's going through this temple, this ancient coda temple, and you see there's kind of this two energies that are flowing through this mosaic, this mural. There's a blue energy and this kind of reddish, pinkish energy. And you see him kind of walk into this temple, and there's an altar with a potion bottle. And he pours the last little bit of this blue energy soma into his own little flask, and he inscribes it. And all of a sudden, shit hits the fan. Two chaos, two black holes open up. One's blue, one's red, and you see him kind of getting sucked away and into our world. And later, Curtis will find him and all that stuff. And that experience is really a metaphor for the main struggle that we're talking about in the main storyline of Otherside, which is there's this battle between creation and chaos. Creation being represented by this kind of blue soma magic, and chaos energy, which is the red shit that's just making people crazy, that's lighting up Metropolis and leading to the all-out war of Project Dragon, and leading to other different kinds of things throughout our universe. And codas are at the center of it. Like, they know this stuff, they bring this battle, this epic war with them. and it's instantiating in kind of different ways throughout every experience. In BOIC Island, it might look like one thing. In Metropolis, it might look like Project Dragon. And coming up soon is where we're going to go to Nexus, which is the ancestral home of the Codas. It looks a lot like a chaos deed that's been built up over thousands of years by the Coda culture and all that stuff. And so on that island, there's some special spots where it's Coda only or mega Coda only even. There's different districts. There's a kind of entertainment district. There's the kind of temple district, all of these things. And Nexus is really it's like our Orgrimmar or our Stormwind. It's like the main city of Otherside. It's the home of the Codas, and we're going to start unpacking their story. And they'll be our guide through a lot of the different experiences we've got cooking for Otherside.
Can you talk about the different elements and parts of the team, yourself included? Because I see you get a little twinkle in your eye when you're doing the storytelling thing, like when you're actually talking about the lore, the storytelling, the world building. Can you talk about the different elements of the team and where they fit into a project like this? Because so just to, give my own personal bias, the storytelling is important to me. One of my favorite games is Fallout 4, which a lot of people think is not as great as Fallout 3 as a game, but Fallout 4's storyline, and if you follow to the end, is absolutely bananas. Surprise ending that I did not see coming. I'm like, this could be a movie. So talk about the storytelling, the world building, the gaming experience, and where I guess maybe even different people we might know in the team fit into this, and how they sort of contribute their different pieces and what excites you the most.
For sure. So, a year and a few months ago when I came back as CEO, I really wanted to change the way that Otherside was running and shipping. And so I was deeply involved on the day-to-day for quite a long time. These days, Figge is handling things better than I ever did, frankly. Leading our Otherside team, obviously he and I chat all the time and we stay close on everything. We have, a creative director whose focus is on the kind of gameplay and systems. So he's a guy who's played every game out there that you've ever heard of. He's just got a library in his brain for, little gems to pick up from here and there, how other people have handled profiles, achievements, all these kinds of things. So he's a massive resource of just knowing what's good out there and how we can adapt it, and with a long experience making AAA games at EA and other places like that. Then we have a creative director who's more on the, some of the stuff I just talked about, the crazy shit, storyline, aesthetic side of things. We've got a pretty sizable concept art team. All of the, that first video we showed yesterday showing the other deeds in all their glory, that is a massive production. It starts with concept art, with just literally pencil and paper, or iPad, pencil and iPad, drawing up what each of these environments look like, and then breaking it down into component parts so that there's each of these things that needs to be 3D modeled, showing the specs, showing it the 360 of exactly a bone deed, showing the skulls on a play deed, what some of these items look like and all that. That stuff then goes out of house. It goes to 3D modelers overseas that we contract with that do this stuff for many of the top games out there. Then it comes back, and then we're, again, internally with engineering, setting up these worlds with 3D people in-house that know level design well and kind of set that part up. Then there's the tech team who's working with M Squared, our platform partner, getting Apechain integrated to everything, testing out flows for transactions. What does it look like to collect an ERC 721 on Otherside, all these kinds of different things. It's a big production, and it involves a lot of people. There's a team here at Yuga. There's vendors overseas that are doing 3D modeling for both avatar stuff or for environments. There's the M Squared team based out of the UK that we work really closely with. There's another content team that's kind of spread out that we're working with. Like, games are hard, and it's like making a movie. Sometimes, that's all those credits you see at the end. Like, it's a big production.
How difficult is it to hone in on, like, you hear this and there's like so many tactical directions people go, run tournaments or, have an open persistent world, or like, how difficult is it to hone in and figure out what the most important thing to do is? Because you talk about this big production and the storytelling, the games, working with command line on 8v8, which, by the way, I asked for this and now I'm going to regret it because I just got so many kills spamming bombs off like a roof, and now I'm actually going to have to like put my money where my mouth is. But like, how do you decide and prioritize on what the most important thing is when you have a project that is so sort of out there with so many ideas and things you could do and so many tactics you could take? How do you focus and move on that?
Yeah, look, it's not, I think that's why we need really strong leadership. I was providing that and provide that sometimes. Figge does it expertly the rest of the time. It can be overwhelming for folks. We're making a very ambitious project. There's a lot of scope. There can be scope creep. You can add complexity to things. And I think at the end of the day, like, you got to remember, like, who are we building this for? How are we driving value back to the people who believe in this thing? And how are we enabling this platform to be bigger than just us? Because I think, and that's, I feel like, the most important North Star that we've had since the beginning, which is these things really take off exactly when I can be asleep, when Figge can be asleep, and somebody's pushing the ball forward. And that happens when the ODK tools are at a place where game devs we've never even heard of are like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let me try launching on this. Or the AI tooling such that, some of our core fans who, and players who just aren't game devs themselves are able to like become game devs and actually pick up the torch and on some of the UGC content. So in a lot of ways, when we're looking at a forking path and trying to figure out like which way, it's where do we get more leverage and enable more creators to actually like push this while we're asleep.
I'm excited about the creator tools we've hit on, these AI creator tools, even the concept of like, and I think of like these open expansive worlds, I like the ability to have like smart NPCs, not just an NPC, but one that is going to evolve and grow and interact with you different every time you interact with it. Beyond the AI characters in this world, do you think like, how crazy is it to think like, or how far away are we, maybe is a better way to put it, to where we have these AI agents start creating their own experiences in the world? Is this crazy talk, or do you see it heading that way as well?
I mean, I don't know. I think my personal experience with AI is sometimes the more that you work on an idea, or whatever, like it spins out. It doesn't know when to stop necessarily. And so I worry about the idea of it like running off totally of its own accord and handling something start to finish, because usually doesn't even know what the word finish really means. Things kind of loop back. I do think that there's AI for NPCs and quest lines. So the idea of like, hey, here's this Coda character who knows kind of the whole backstory of the universe. And he knows his role that he plays in that world. And he's here to talk to you, but he's also got a specific quest line that he's trying to give. In the same way that when you would load up World of Warcraft or something like that, it's like, you've got your like fetch quest. There's like very particular things. I think that to me is a really exciting, fun way of using AI. Is like you get much more atmosphere out of the experience, and like it's like you're talking to a real person, but at the same time, it's not so sprawling and open-ended that there's not a goal in mind. It's like at the end of the day, he has something, or he's trying to get you to do something pretty specific. And I think that helps us preserve the game loop that people are expecting. without it just totally going off the rails into just chatbot land. Yeah.
No, that tracks. Makes sense. I guess, Figge, similar question to you as far as the that actually opened up with, because I know that, Garga mentioned a lot of the leadership you've been putting into this as well. What sort of, to give you the big opening question I asked Garga, like, what excites you the most? Because you talked about the developer tools. Garga talked about the new primitives, maybe something besides the new primitives, even if that excites you, because I love that answer of like actually trying to introduce new frameworks of how to operate within this world of gaming and blockchain and how it can work together. But maybe a different answer than that, like what else excites you on a high level about everything you guys released yesterday?
I think there hasn't been, lately, I've actually been a little bit burnt out on CT. I'm a huge crypto fan. I love, going over different chains and trying things. But there hasn't really been like something super high effort that takes a lot of development that's focused around story. That's honestly one of the real reasons that I originally joined Bored Ape Yacht Club. Just this idea that you could have a story or an experience that a lot of people could participate in, and it doesn't have to get like too in the weeds about, overly crypto stuff. And I really do feel like Otherside trends in that direction where, I think we're cognizant that like we have a core base of users, and there's people right now actually playing a metagame. There's guys like, David Unsung, Willie Anderson, like a lot of really, really good collectors out there that are looking and playing at the game that exists right now, which is just looking at resources and rarity tables. And there's already something at play with just moving that around, right? But I think that when you implement a story, when you have people play through and they don't even realize, like there's nothing on the surface of it that screams anything blockchain or crypto right off the bat, you're just actually in the middle of a story. I think that's really important. I was, looking back at the original Warcraft. Well, I was playing a bunch of games in our space, and then I cracked open World of Warcraft, actually. And it's amazing how, like, there's almost no tutorial or interface in World of Warcraft. Like, if you jump in, you have a bunch of empty slots at the bottom, and then your first slot has a fireball. And then you're just in the world. And they don't tell you how to use the fireball. They don't tell you where you're at. You just kind of have to discover stuff along the way. And I think people are smart. I think they can figure it out, right? So we want that first touch to be really strong. In Otherside, we want, if people are here for storytelling experiences and community, then they should have like pretty cinematic like first touch on how to get into the world. And once you've established like, hey man, that's the vibe of this place, right? Like this is the type of thing we're going for. I think people who want to opt into that, like they'll be like, okay, yeah, this platform's for me. Like I want to know what else I can do here. And so we have a little bit of the, mainline campaign with quests and side quests and even like achievements that could be made within ODK games. Like imagine these ODK games almost as if they're like apps on Apechain, and we had Spotlight, and we can actually drive traffic to certain apps. That's what like Spotlight was able to do. We're gonna be able to do the similar things within Otherside, where if there's a developer that does something cool, sets up something fun, we can set up a badge for them and drive traffic to them, because that's part of this, right? Is like I see Otherside almost working at a protocol level, and I think protocols have a duty once they're able to like create infrastructure and story for what they're about. They have a duty to actually support the apps and developers on the platform, and in turn, I think those users, users will go and adventure and check out stuff on crypto because there's usually an advantage to being a first mover. All that to say, like, it's a balance between, one of the questions you were asking earlier, which I thought was funny, was like, oh, well, how do you stay focused when there's like so many things going on? But one aspect that you also that we haven't touched on is exactly what we did yesterday, which is like, yeah, but we're not building this in a silo, right? Like we have to communicate what we're working on. So it's almost a forcing function sometimes when we present like progress to the world, because it means that certain features have to be up to a level of confidence where we can actually like share them or curate them in a way that it's like, hey, this is an aspect that's really important to us. And I mean, I'm almost like just going through the thread yesterday, and I can look at relative engagement within the 9 different aspects that we raised, and I could say, oh yeah, like clearly the AI prompting to modify your environment has started a lot of conversation. Clearly the other deeds being seen and stories unfolding on those, that starts a lot of conversation. And then there's other features where you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like people are interested in this, but it doesn't have as much engagement as other things. So like maybe this isn't as important to people. And so just by even dropping, a 9-part thread that covers a lot of different topics, you're able to kind of get some signal on what do people actually care about? Like some people might care 10 times more about one feature than any other feature. And that's a good signal for us as a team to be like, maybe we should focus more on that.
I get excited just hearing you talk about that. You mentioned like badges in passing, and my brain went to other page. And like we've been talking about interoperability since 2021, and I feel like we finally achieved, like we're there. Like thanks to, I kept using the, calling Apechain like the connective tissue that's tying up, pulling us all together and helping us row in the same direction. And I feel like Otherside is just going to level that up to a whole nother level in this idea of, because it really is like, it's so wide. Like you could be talking a game, and then the next thing is someone talking about. You saw, I think Jerry talking about an Ape Solar, demo showroom. Like what can be created here is so wide and broad. But that's part of the fun, is that it isn't just the Yuga team. It isn't just the Ape Foundation that's making these decisions. Yes, building us the sandbox, but having so many, obviously comes with challenges. But yeah, I'm excited for interoperability, not just to be a buzzword, but actually real. And
there's an entire content play there where somebody could go to all of the other deeds and show the different experiences, right? So there's, I think, a lot of things that come out of that for sure. I think like one, I know you guys, you got, I think, a Clubhouse coming up at 10. So I know we'll, a couple more questions. Two things, and then Cap, obviously anything else. But like one thing I want to ask, and I know, Garga, you probably can't go deep on this, but I'm always curious, like, there was this, when we had you on 3 weeks ago, there was this idea of ApeCo. Obviously, that has since, passed, and we have seen the DAO sort of sunset. Things aren't working, move on, fun experiment. But now we have ApeCo, and ApeCo had talked about sort of the focus of Bored Ape Yacht Club, of Apechain, and Otherside. It feels like there's probably a pretty big, like, am I wrong in assuming now that I've seen exactly what this is, and we've seen this, to say, if you're somebody who's interested in building out on Otherside, like that might be the route. If you're actually like a person who's done this before or have a really good idea to help move things forward, like probably a good place for people to focus energies, because it feels like that's probably a big bet that now has a lot of green space if you're going to ApeCo.
Absolutely. So, the proposal just passed. Thank you everybody for their support on that. Like 99.66% or something ridiculous. I feel like if I asked people, to agree on anything else, it would have been somehow less than that. So I guess it shows just how united people are in this, and how supportive they are. So really appreciate that. And yeah, with Otherside, we've seen how a command line type, dev team, what, the kind of damage that they can do building on Otherside in a scrappy way. We've seen it with another studio we're working with, called Prismatic, on Outbreak, Otherside Outbreak, which is this kind of zombie infection tag game that's coming in August. Within the scheme, game dev's expensive, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the costs come down when you're building on Otherside. And if you think about the opportunity that, like, whatever your favorite chains are out there, how many high quality 3D immersive games are on that chain? Vanishingly small amount of them. And so I think that is one of the highest ROI places where we can invest at ApeCo, is who are some experienced community devs or third-party devs that want to come on and build on Otherside, build on Apechain, using the ODK. And I think we can get a really big content calendar together if we do this right. And I think there's some low-hanging fruit there in the types of games that we could be doing. I mean, I think we start with making sure Otherside has some certain genres ticked off, like, all right, who's going to make the tower defense for Otherside? Who's going to make the 1v1 dueling where you can wager some stuff? I've got a whole list, and we're headhunting to find the right partners for them. But I think, I 100% agree. I was talking to Cam about it yesterday. I think one of the highest ROI places for Apeco is going to be in funding third-party Otherside builders to build experiences, because it's building in a way that, only Apechain has Otherside. So we have to go from, build from our strengths.
Cap, I don't know if you have anything else, because I got one more, maybe 5% joking, but mostly serious question to ask Garga before we get him out of here.
Well, I mean, on that note, I was just going to mention that Garga and Figge both getting a lot of love. Garga for the immaculate stash, and Figge for that beautiful baritone voice. So the chat's big fans of both you gentlemen. Really appreciate all your time. I know you're super busy with everything going on, and you mentioned it, Stephen, passing the at the clubhouse space kicks off here in just a few minutes. If anyone wants to continue that conversation, the link is pinned up top. Go hit that reminder and join the fellows over there here once we wrap. But go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, one last question before you get out of here. And I asked this in the chat, but I got to ask it publicly because we got you here. You shared that cool drawing of command line that you put up. That can you mint that and just give it away to a random person who gets involved in the playtest? It just, the actual ownership and the collectability of something like that, if there's a 101 or if it's an edition series, would be very cool. I love the idea of minting history on the blockchain, not because it's financial, make it soulbound, I don't care, but because it's really cool. Cap was ready to pull it up in the speed. Stuff like this, I love. Is there a chance where you would either, where you would mint those and give them away maybe as editions or as a single just to random players who play, or maybe you have them hidden around the map and someone could pick it up as a token?
We'll look at it. I mean, I love this stuff. I mean, my background when I was ghostwriting and editing books before, it was basically concept art books for the making of World of Warcraft or other stuff like that. So I love, the history here. This piece was done by Chomps, who's an OG BOIC artist. He's the one that does so many of the weekly art posts that you see from the BOIC Twitter. The one yesterday that shows kind of Curtis as the Buddha getting assaulted by demons and just kind of vibing. He did that one too. So he's the same guy who did the original clubhouse images on the BOIC website of the exterior of the club and the interior and all that. He's, a huge part of our success. And I'll talk to Chomps and see if maybe we can figure something out where we do something here. But I love that. I'm with you. I love the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it's our favorite thing. And so, that's why I appreciate that. I appreciate Figge sharing the behind the scenes look at how, the sort of models being built out. But look, I know you got to run. You got another space in 4 minutes. We're going to try to wrap so we can get over there as well. So thanks for coming through as always. And obviously, welcome back anytime. We love chatting with you when you have big announcements and really excited about this momentum that's coming forward.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Apechain on Chain. This project is powered by the ApeCoin DAO through AIP 572, bringing our community's valuable conversations on chain and also on traditional audio platforms. Rate this episode and/or leave feedback and earn Dixo rewards by visiting the Dixo on-chain platform.